Hello and welcome to Geeky Bit. Today in tech history, we're going to talk about IBM's OS2. OS2 was the brainchild of Microsoft and IBM, and it started its development all the way back in 1985. And by the release of 1.1 in 1988, it had a graphical interface. By 1990, things were not going as smooth, as Microsoft decided to leave the project to focus on Windows 3.0. This was also a point of contention with IBM. One of the things cited as the falling out between Microsoft and IBM was that IBM felt that OS2 would be best suited as a closed hardware system, much in the way macOS is, by only working on Mac computers. Nothing changes minds more than corporate anger. While against the idea of open hardware, IBM liked competing with Microsoft's Windows and ending Microsoft's OS dominance. By 1994, OS2 got a slight rebranding with the name Warp added to it. IBM's plan was wildly successful, but it was still not enough to stop Microsoft Windows, and Windows 95 and 98 more or less crushed OS2 Warp. Still to this day, you can get OS2 Warp through third parties that maintain and sell it. By 1999 though, OS2 was no longer a major player in the personal computer OS space. OS2 was an x86 and PowerPC OS that could run Windows and DOS applications alongside with its own software. It was more robust with a Unix-like OS handling, so I want to show off OS2 Warp in action. However, I had a lot of troubles. I couldn't get my modern Retro 98 computer to run it. I couldn't get my Retro Pentium laptop to run it, and I went through a bunch of hardware and I couldn't get it to work until I came across a old Dell computer I had. I was able to load it on that. And I know you're going, hey, look, couldn't you have just used VirtualBox? Because VirtualBox can run it. I wanted a true bare metal hardware experience. So here we are with the OS2 Warp boot screen. It's nice and blue. And I'm gonna speed up through this because, well, the hardware itself is pretty powerful for the time period, and even for this operating system, it takes the better part of 2 minutes. Okay, here we have our beautiful insert the CD-ROM screen up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the correct CD-ROM in, and then we will hit enter, and then hopefully it will go any day now. And there it goes. Alright, now that we're here, we're gonna go ahead and go to accept the volume, because I've already set it up. We'll do long format, and then this is going to take a while, so I'm gonna speed on through this. So we should be done just about now. Okay, here we are with the graphical installation. I can't use the mouse, but I'm able to use the tab keys. So everything looks like what I want. Let me see if I can get some changing to the mouse to make it usable. There's no USB option, and that's the kind of mouse I have. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get the mouse to work. Let me just go ahead and finish up the installation, and then we'll see the operating system booting. Okay, here we are in the operating system. Of course, we've got this giant DOS window up here. We should be able to exit it by just typing exit. Yep. And this is what OS2 Warp looks like. It's very similar to Windows 95. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about my story with OS2 Warp. In 1998, I was able to buy a sealed copy of OS2 Warp from a garage sale of all places. Man, was I excited to get to try out this OS, but sadly it didn't work on the computers that I had. It wouldn't have been till mid-2007, almost a decade later, when I was able to use VirtualBox, that I was able to get to see OS2 Warp in action. But by then, the OS just wasn't as impressive as a contemporary counterpart of that time period. So here are my thoughts about OS2. If IBM had accepted the idea of open hardware much earlier, we may have never seen Microsoft rise to a massive powerhouse, as they may have just continued to work together with IBM, and OS2 or OS2 Warp is the operating system would be using today. I think OS2 Warp was ahead of its time, but its overall lack of hardware support doomed it. While it is still around, it more or less is a legacy holdover product. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and if so, feel free to click that like button, and if you aren't subscribed so already, feel free to do so as well, and if you'd like to get notifications of my future videos, click that bell button.